underrepresented communities. Okay, it looks like we are live. Awesome, 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 awesome. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is Yashmai Walters. I am a instructor here at Creating Coding Careers. Creating Coding Careers is a tech apprenticeship program where we recruit, hire, and train individuals from all over the country. We have a huge emphasis on members from underrepresented communities, individuals who, in the past wouldn't have considered tech or a career in tech as an opportunity for them. And today we have a very special guest. So Alex Martinez, who is the usual host of this event, I had to tell him, like, nah, I got this one. It's my the Todd's coming in today, so I got this one. So Todd, I'll let you take it away and introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Todd Bashor. I'm Chief Product Officer at NewRocket. NewRocket is a ServiceNow partner, and we are a professional services company by focus, but we also have a number of products that we have built and supply to our clients to help with their ServiceNow needs. And I'm the head of that particular organization. Long history in the ServiceNow ecosystem and enterprise software in general, and I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, it's good having you here. So I see everyone's joining in. Everyone type in where you're from. Where are you joining from? Because I'm very interested to hear. So Todd, take us to the beginning, right? What were you doing before you got into tech?
Wow. So before I got into tech, if we want to go all the way back to school, so I went to college thinking that I was going to be a high school speech teacher. So I majored in communication. I got my undergrad, and growing up, I was into computers and kind of dabbled in Visual Basic and those types of things. And throughout my undergrad, I continued educating myself on databases and Microsoft Access and those types of things. And then I continued to grad school, still focused on communication, but I had a minor in computer education because, again, I thought I was going to teach when I got out of school. And then when I figured out, I have a lot of student loan debt, I need to go get a good paying job. I got into technical training, and that's where I had even more opportunities to practice my technical skills, programming skills. And throughout my career, I've had one foot on the business side and one foot on the technical side. And so I really enjoy that because I get to exercise both sides of my brain. But I've gradually gotten more and more technical as the years have progressed.
Okay. And now you're at ServiceNow, or at NewRocket, which is a ServiceNow company. Can you tell us what it was like when you were first getting into the ServiceNow ecosystem?
Yeah, so I was actually at FICO, leading their product management team for their fraud detection product. And someone I'd worked with previously reached out, and they were looking for product management help at ServiceNow. And because of my background in IT management and infrastructure management software, it was a good fit. And I started working at ServiceNow, really focusing on the platform aspects of it. And as part of that, I transitioned into leading a custom app development solution consulting team, so helping customers take advantage of the platform side of ServiceNow. I left ServiceNow, did some freelancing, really focused on programming at that point, helping startups and various other technical pursuits. And then I got together with Nathan Firth, who also co-founded NewRocket, and that's where we felt like it was more fun to help clients with their needs on ServiceNow than to just be part of the mothership, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So we have our apprentices going through ServiceNow training as well as some pre-apprentices. So what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out now trying to get into that ecosystem?
Yeah, jump in. So the way I describe ServiceNow, it's like an iceberg. So it's the surface is actually pretty easy to get into, and you can accomplish a lot with relatively small knowledge. And then there's a ton to learn. And you know, if you're not interested in certain aspect of what ServiceNow has to offer, I'm sure there's something else that is interesting. They do have their developer site, so I think it's developer.servicenow.com, and lots of free information out there, different paths that you can follow. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. You can get a what they call a personal developer instance, which is your own kind of sandbox, and you can go in there and play around and practice what you're learning. And then once you know the basics, a lot of it is about figuring out what you're interested in on the ServiceNow platform and diving deeper into that area. And again, they have the Now Learning portal that has a bunch of courses on it, and just getting in there and seeing what is possible with ServiceNow, because it is a very rich platform, and you can do a ton with relatively little effort.
Yeah, I was taking a look at the amount of like certs and micro certs that are available. And yeah, it's there's so much you can do. So I like that, just getting in and then based on what you're interested in doing, pursuing that path.
Yeah.
Um,
And
that's awesome.
there's a lot of so ServiceNow covers a lot of domains. Let's say that you're interested in like more infrastructure, cloud operations, data center. Okay, go into IT operations management. Let's say that you're more interested in HR type processes. Okay, we'll go into the HR area. So there's really a lot of diversity in terms of where you can take your career in ServiceNow, and just do some soul searching and decide where you want to head.
Got it. Okay. Pretty sure our apprentices and pre-apprentices will appreciate that. So being in the position that you're in, being like that you've been in a hiring manager position, do you see a difference between having a degree or someone who went the apprenticeship route?
Yeah, so I would say a lot of the graduates that have like a traditional education, they they tend to have a good foundation in terms of theoretically what's possible, and they have a little bit more diversity in terms of how um, like knowing what's out there. Maybe they've dabbled in a few more languages than someone who took more of a non-traditional route like the apprenticeship route. um, but what I would say in my experience working with the apprentices is I find that the apprentices have more grit and passion, because oftentimes they're changing careers, and they have an attitude like, oh, I really want to do this because I want to do it, not because this is kind of the career path that's supposed to happen. Like I go and I get my CS degree and I'm supposed to go find a job. The apprentices that I've worked with, they've had a career, they maybe weren't satisfied with it. They're really taking the steps necessary to go and pursue this thing. And I find that their attitude is more passionate about learning, about kind of doing what it takes to be successful in that area. And I would also say that a lot of the skills that folks learn in other industries give them an advantage coming into a CS area like ServiceNow, because maybe they interacted with customers a lot more than someone with a more traditional background, or they have a perspective about work life that's different than someone who has just worked on software development in their career. So I find a lot of advantages to folks who take a non-traditional route, and the areas that they may not have exposure to. Fortunately, we have tons of resources out there that you can shore that up. You can take courses, you can read books, you can pursue that on your own. There's really very little in a traditional education that you can't get later in your career through some effort. So it's definitely different paths, and they have their pros and cons. But my experience with apprentices has been absolutely great, and just in general, I lean toward going that route from a hiring perspective, just because I've had so much success at finding great people that way.
Man, that's good to hear. Because you guys definitely have a long list of apprentices who would love to get into your company. We were watching you guys' office tour, and we were sharing it. So for those of you who are watching right now who haven't checked out the NewRocket office tour video on YouTube, check it out. Nathan was on there. He was saying, yeah, we got video games and rock climbing and all this. I was like, when do you guys work? You know? Well, no, it's no,
definitely work, but the gym is great. I take advantage of that. It's very fun to have a nice office and be able to go in there when you want to.
That's good. So on that same topic, what's the work culture like?
We're really helpful to each other. In fact, culturally, we really encourage people to ask questions, work with each other, very supportive. We have a very active kind of dialogue between engineers. Someone has a question, they can reach out and usually get a response in a couple minutes. My product team in particular is really good at helping each other. We get on our status meetings, and someone says, "Oh, I need help with this," and pretty much after the call, someone's there and helping out. And that's the kind of culture I think is really vital to making people successful. Is not being afraid to ask questions and taking the time to help out, because inevitably you will always be the one who needs help. And if you've offered that help, it makes it easier for you to get it when you need it. We definitely work hard, and we have this intense focus on our clients and trying to make them successful. We hold ourselves to a much higher bar than a lot of times even our clients do, because especially early on, the expectations with the market were so low on enterprise software and kind of what you could get, that we were the ones that were pushing ourselves to deliver better. And fortunately or unfortunately, we've raised the bar, and now there is more of an expectation on what you should be able to get out of the box. That has encouraged ServiceNow to raise their game, but that forces us to continue to be on the forefront. And what we've tried to do, especially in the experience practice, where that's kind of where NewRocket evolved into as we got acquired, where we focus on kind of the intranets and the web interface for employees to work with the service providers. That area, not only do you have customers saying, "Oh, well, I have these great consumer experiences, I want that same thing at work," we've also raised the bar and said, "Okay, well, there's this minimum standard." So as a work culture, we have to drive ourselves to be better. And fortunately, we're trying to foster a culture where we give each other support to do that, to take the time to get better ourselves. We really value education, and even after you get into the ecosystem and you're able to deliver client projects, go and make sure that you're staying current, that you're exploring other areas of ServiceNow, and just staying on the forefront of what's available. So I would say that's one of the big differentiators with us is just our focus on cooperation and education, and living up to our core values of excellence, creativity, integrity, teamwork, and empathy. And we use the EXCITE acronym to talk about our core values, and I, I use that as my guiding star, and we try to live those values every day.
Wow, that's awesome. And so you mentioned being acquired. Can you talk about what that whole process was like?
Yeah, it was exhausting and exciting all at the same time. We So what had happened is a private equity company brought together several companies, and they were really looking for the best partners for what they do. So one of the partners was recognized for like risk and resiliency, for example, and we were known in the ecosystem for user experience and the portals that we've done. And so coming together, we were bringing the best of these companies and creating a much larger entity. And what that meant for us is the work that we had to turn down because we didn't have specialization. Now we could do what we do really well and do all the other stuff. So what that resulted in is a company that had very broad expertise, but also very deep expertise. And that has set us up as really one of the most elite partners in the world for ServiceNow. And we've gone through some growing pains, and I'm happy that we seem to be on the right track and continuing to pull processes together and really start taking advantage of all of the expertise that the organizations have separately, but doing that in a very cohesive way.
That's awesome. It's definitely a testament to the work that you guys put in to see where you guys are now. Because I remember when you guys were much smaller, right? And we had a couple of apprentices over there.
Yeah.
So to see you guys where you are now is incredible.
Yeah, it was a shock to see the company go from about 50 people when we got acquired. Instantly, we became several hundred, and now I think we're almost 600 people, and we have people in Canada and the UK and India, and it's very diverse and very much global, and we're continuing to grow, and that's exciting to see it transition. And the other exciting thing for us was when we got acquired, we were acquired under the High Metric brand, and pretty soon they realized that NewRocket had a great brand and name recognition, so they rebranded all the companies under NewRocket, and that was just a testament to honestly the great work that Nathan had done to our visual branding and our voice and everything, and a testament to the work that the employees actually did delivering excellence into the field. And then we've been able to continue that as we evolve as a company. So it's been fun.
That's awesome. What are some things that you guys do to maintain that quality and high standard that you guys had in the beginning? How do you maintain that today?
Yeah, a lot of it is kind of reinforcing it through people who were here, prior to the acquisition. I just went to India to train a group of engineers specifically on our experience practice, kind of the portal work that we're doing. And a big part of my job was to carry on the idea and the message, and this is the way we do things. It's kind of easy to say, okay, well, you need technical excellence. it's another thing for a company to say, I'm telling you, you have to have that technical excellence. And that was part of my job and part of the leadership, holding ourselves higher, to that higher standard. So that's our managers and our leaders saying this is the standard that we have, and enforcing that. The other thing that we try to do is make sure that we have at least 2 engineers on every project, to make sure that there's someone, a second set of eyeballs to look at the work and make sure that it's where we want it to be in the design process. And we do have a full design team that we use on the projects. It really is a team effort. There's at least 2 designers on it. We have content consultants. They all work collaboratively with the clients to make sure that the user experience is at a high level. And then the expectation on the engineering side, and this is in the onboarding and the training, is it needs to be pixel perfect. It needs to have high levels of quality. So the design process helps, the engineering process and the partnership that we have there. And then the other thing that we do is we try to capture the good things that we're doing in the field into our products, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And what that does is it raises the level of quality, because we're not making things up every time, and as well as freeing up the engineers to do more creative things. So they're not building the same thing over and over and again. They're able to innovate, and they have a little bit more capacity to work on things that are specific to the client, rather than worrying about just repeating what they did in the last project. So there's a few things that we do, especially within the experience practice, that through the system help to increase that quality and excellence.
Wow. So I assume no 2 days are the same, but can you talk about what your day-to-day looks like?
Yeah, my day-to-day has shifted quite a bit. So these days, it's really a combination of things. I am doing a lot of planning because I just kind of took over the entire product portfolio, and several of the companies that were brought together had products that they were selling, including the original NewRocket. So we're trying to pull all of that together into a portfolio and make sure that we are investing in the right areas. So part of my job is planning and pulling all that information together to prepare for the budget cycle that we're going into. So there's a strategic aspect to what I do. And then the other big area where I spend my time is actually working on some of our legacy products and helping the team evolve those and improve those, as well as helping the folks in our delivery organization make sure that we're delivering the excellence out into the field. So it's kind of a combination of strategic work, some very tactical product things, and then some field support activities and sales and delivery.
Awesome. So we do have some questions coming in. And I'll take this one. So this one's from Philip Swan, and it's what is a pre-apprentice? So a pre-apprentice is someone who's going through the basically the pre-work to gear up for an apprenticeship. There's certain fundamental things that you would need to learn that will prepare you for the apprenticeship. We don't want to just throw you in. So we have some curriculum, and we do have a site. If someone can drop the site, drop the link in the chat, that would be awesome. But we do have a site where you can go and apply. It is open for you to join. And just a reminder, guys, you can go ahead and add your questions to the chat. So Todd, how do you juggle that work-life balance? I hear people talk about it all the time. How do you make that happen?
Yeah. Wow, I'm not great at that, to be fair. what I've had to work on pretty much my entire career is delegating more. And I'm one of those people where sometimes I'll think, oh, it's probably just easier if I do it instead of taking the time to work with someone to get them up to speed. And an interesting thing happened recently. Matt Stoika, our CEO, was talking to the folks in India, and he was talking about how everything he does needs to be like looking for 10x activities. So something that he does needs to have a 10x impact. And I asked him about that later, and I said, well, how do you decide, those 10x things? How do you decide when something is 10x? And he gave me a great explanation, and a lot of it is taking the time to educate and to really bring other people up to speed, so it's easier to delegate over time. And that allows me to have focus on those bigger impact areas. So that's what I'm working on right now. And by doing that, I'm able to reduce the number of competing priorities that I have, and I can make a bigger impact on a few areas. And by doing that, I have time to work on my outside of work life, and hobbies and those types of things. So it's, a lot of the books will talk about focus, and it's not about managing your time. It's about managing your focus. And when you're, running a business, starting a business, there's a ton of stuff going on, and you need to be able to really focus on, okay, what is going to have the biggest impact, and what is it that I can uniquely bring to the situation, and then try to deprioritize everything else and either delegate it or say, I'm not going to do that. And so when we talk about work-life balance, there are priorities outside of work, and making sure that those have the right prioritization, and then managing your focus inside of work so you keep the work contained to the right amount of time of your week. And honestly, I've worked on that for years, and I'll continue to work on it, because I don't always have a good work-life balance, but I'm trying.
No, I think that's perfect. That's perfect, and that's great, because we had a question from Angela's son, but I think you answered it. She said, "Hi Todd, with such a diverse and busy workload, what advice do you have in terms of prioritizing your work?" But that was a great answer for that.
Yeah, I'll just add that it's going to change over your career, definitely. But I'm a huge fan of what I call brutal prioritization. You have to be really brutally honest with yourself on what the priority is for what you're doing, what you're focused on. And it's okay in most cases to say no to stuff. In fact, some people would say you should say no to most everything. But it takes a real discipline to get to that point.
So we have another question from Leandra. Leandra asks, what are important skills you look for in a candidate?
Probably the number one skill that I look for is not really a skill, it's an attitude, and that's passion. I'll take someone with a really great attitude over someone with, book smart any day. So that's probably the number one thing. I want someone who's eager to learn, who's excited, who just wants to do a great job, wants to advance themselves, and has that right attitude. And coupled with that, someone who's really, really curious, because if you're curious, that usually leads to empathy, which is one of our core values, and a really critical part of developing software in general, if you're not thinking about the end user, you're just developing for yourself, honestly. And curiosity also leads to, I'm going to educate myself when I don't know the answer. And if you work in software, you pretty much hardly ever know the answer because you're inventing things. And so if you're not curious, then you may as well go work in a factory because you're just doing the same thing over and over again. So I'd say first and foremost, looking for passion, looking for curiosity, and then, when we, especially people who are early in their career, they don't have a big portfolio or really complicated examples. So I'm looking for examples of where they've dug into a problem and they've tried to work through it. How did you work through it? What's your process for doing that? How did you find answers to things you didn't know about? And it's not just like, oh, I'm going to go copy a bunch of easy projects. It's not about volume. It's about depth. Like, what is the depth of the problem that you are tackling? What was that process that you went through to deal with that? Sometimes it's not even successful. I mean, I've learned the most from my mistakes in my career. If everything's going well, you're not pushing yourself enough. So,
well, great answer.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn user asks, how would you recommend for people who have done an apprenticeship, gained certification, and now is on the job hunt? I think they mean like, what would you recommend for, those people?
Yeah, if you want to stay in the ServiceNow ecosystem, SN Jobs is an aggregate of all the ServiceNow jobs that are available out there, not just from NewRocket, but from other partners. That's a great resource as far as just finding the job search. I definitely recommend getting your system administrator certification, kind of that foundational certification. If you have certifications going into an interview, you have a huge advantage, honestly, because it's quite expensive and risky for a partner to invest in someone to get them up to the point where they can get certified. If you walk in with that, you're already a premium, and at least you can take a test, right? But normally there's some skill behind that, and that's a good launching point for getting you onboarded and with a client and on a project. So I don't know if that answered all the aspects of that question, but definitely in terms of finding who's hiring, SN Jobs is great. As far as getting in the interviews, showing that you're doing things on your personal developer instance, that you're educating yourself, that you're working towards certification, microcerts, all of that will separate you from other candidates.
Awesome. We have another question. As an educator going through a career transition into tech, I'm happy to hear your story, Todd. Any advice for folks trying to land their first role in the tech industry after amassing 10 plus years in a different industry?
Yeah, you have to look at your transferable skills and really be able to articulate how you've been able to take your experience and how that's going to help you in the tech world. Certainly there's kind of minimum, okay, what languages are they looking for? What skills are they looking for? But when you're making a transition like that, especially in tech, a lot of it comes down to your portfolio. If you have a good website, if you have good project examples, if when I go into that code, it looks clean, that's going to help you get an interview. And then in the interview, being able to talk about how you've made the transition, why you've made the transition. If you are passionate and curious, make sure that comes out in the interview, because I'm not the only one in the hiring space that looks for that stuff. So those are some things that you want to consider. I would really say working on your portfolio, again, it's not about volume, it's about quality, and really paying attention to being able to explain what you're doing in those projects is really important.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I like that. I think a lot of our apprentices are in that position or similar position where it's just like working on their projects and um, you know uh, just adding day to day.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have another question. So what has been a big challenge for ServiceNow this year in your department? That's from Maryland.
Um, so in the ServiceNow ecosystem or in our business? I'm not sure. Maybe I'll have to answer both. But so in our business, honestly, hiring is a huge challenge because that it does take a long time to get a really high level of expertise within ServiceNow, and we want to get people onboarded and ramped up as quickly as possible. So finding people at the right level is challenging, and ServiceNow is a very hot ecosystem, so there's a lot of competition for the folks that are trained in it. That's why it's a great area to get into, because there is a lot of demand. And then in the ServiceNow ecosystem, just in general in the market, because of the diversity in ServiceNow in general, in terms of what it's able to help businesses do, there's really a lot of demand in all the areas. When you go out to a client and whatever they're working on, let's say that they're working on an HR rollout, or they're using ServiceNow to help manage their customer relationships. Those have their own unique challenges, and oftentimes they're also struggling to understand what ServiceNow can do for them, how to best implement that, and that's where they're going to turn to partners like us to get that expertise. And that's why it's important for us to have folks that have educated themselves on what's possible with ServiceNow, how it works out of the box. So when our folks get in front of the clients, they can answer those questions with confidence and authority.
I have a couple more questions for you. Promise,
Sure.
it's like 3 more. So Anna asks, what is your take on ServiceNow Next Gen training?
Yeah, I don't know too much about the program, but it is a great way to ease into the ecosystem. This is a big area of focus for ServiceNow, because they realize that there's really not enough people available in the ecosystem, both for partners and for customers. So they're trying to beef up how many people are trained and well versed in what's possible. That's a great entry point, and I think one of the areas where creating coding careers has an advantage is you're getting the JavaScript skills that are also necessary. And ServiceNow as a platform is focused on low code, and they're really emphasizing how easy it is. And for the most part, it is. But if you're going to do really sophisticated things, you need that JavaScript foundation. So even if you go through the Next Gen program, which I do recommend, getting more traditional JavaScript training, having that to supplement what you're doing on the ServiceNow side is important, because when you go outside the low code, you're using JavaScript, and there's plenty of times when we've done reams and reams of JavaScript to build a solution for our clients, and that's possible on the platform. It's just not something that they're going to emphasize in the Next Gen program.
In deciding to pick designer or developer route, what skill would be important to learn?
Why not do both? No. So I definitely designers who can code and developers who can have an eye for design. Those are very rare, but those are the exactly type of people we look for. So if you have an interest in both, please nurture both and keep both sides of your brain active as you're working on that. In terms of the question was what skills is there?
Yes. What
Yeah.
skills that would be important?
Yeah. So these days, being really proficient with Figma as a tool on the design side is absolutely critical. There's quite a few people still using Sketch and even the Adobe suite, but if you're going to do UI UX, Figma's kind of the way to go right now. It's kind of the safe bet. That's from a tooling standpoint. The other thing from a design standpoint is just educating yourself on design patterns, heuristics, cognitive bias, those types of things, really understanding the fundamentals of design. Those will serve you throughout your career, regardless of what tool you're talking about. And a lot of people kind of depend on tools or on other examples. But if you know the fundamentals, you're already way above many designers that are out there. On the dev side, it's you pretty much, I will say you need to know JavaScript just as a main language. You're able to use it on the server, on the client. There's really no getting away from it. It's also nice to know at least one other language just as a counterpoint. So you don't necessarily need to go deep in it, but having another syntax in there is helpful. Early on, I wouldn't dilute it too much. Like, don't go out and try to learn 5 different languages, but just having some exposure to a different language is helpful. So I don't know if that answered the question, but those are the top of mind things.
Awesome. Last question. And this one's from Jennifer. She says, "Hi Todd, which paths on Now Learning do you recommend and find useful?"
So again, it depends on what you're interested in. If you've already gone through fundamentals and kind of the administrator stuff, then I'll personally put a plug in there for Service Portal. If you are coming from a more traditional development background, there's a huge opportunity learning UI Builder and UI component development. There's a severe lack of knowledge in the ecosystem right now, and that's kind of where ServiceNow is going. And then just on more of the implementation side, it really depends on what sort of business problem you're interested in. I like the CSM space. I really like the HR space. There's lots of opportunities there, and it's kind of more fun, at least for me. But a lot of people that have more of a tech bent, they'll go into like IT operations and discovery and those types of things where they're working on more of the integrations. So lots of different areas. But what I would say before you like jump into a path, maybe do a micro cert, like from a sales perspective. So you get an overview of that module and then see if you're interested, because if you're going to dive in and spend hours and hours, diving into something technically, you want some basic interest in that particular area. So get an overview, and the micro certs are, pretty quick, usually like I think 30 minutes, an hour, something like that. And so it's a small investment, but it's still good to have a broad knowledge. And then once you find something you're interested in, dive into that path of courses.
Awesome. That's great advice. We did just have one last one pop up. Last one, I promise, because we did go over a little bit. So this is Aisha. This is very.
Never gonna stop.
Aisha Miles. Any other certifications outside of ServiceNow would you recommend?
So outside of ServiceNow, as far as certs go, again, it's really what you're interested in. Certainly, if you are interested in like DevOps, like any Amazon or cloud certifications are going to be really, really helpful in your job search. That's a huge investment, and you got to be interested in that area to kind of stick with it. But that's also a very popular option. To be completely honest with you, there are certifications out there. The certification needs to be highly, highly relevant to the job that you're seeking in order for me to really care. Because a lot of times certifications say that you put in the time and you took the test. You may not know what you're doing. So you got to back up the certification. So I wouldn't overemphasize having the certification on paper if you're not able to really back that up with, during an interview, talking through the concepts and showing that you really know your stuff. So just balance the paper with the actual knowledge.
It goes back to what you're saying. It's not volume, it's the depth.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Todd, man, this is great. Thanks for coming and spending time with us. Everyone out there, thank you for the awesome questions. Mike, do you have anything, Mike? Any final words?
Final words. Thanks so much, Todd, for coming by. I know you've been crushing it in the ServiceNow ecosystem for a long time. And I think it's helpful for folks to kind of get that, advice from a sage. I don't want to say age wise, but seasoned veteran in the space. So thanks again for taking so much knowledge.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right.
Take care.
Till next week.
Bye.